Welcome to a deep dive that goes, well, right to the heart of what it means to be human in our modern world. We're diving into Yuval Noah Harari's Nexus, specifically, the ways information, power, and humanity, how they all kind of intersect. Ready for some serious food for thought?
Absolutely. Nexus, it really challenges us to rethink some pretty basic assumptions. We
Mhm.
often hear that more information leads to a better world, but Harari, he argues it's not that simple.
Okay, so like having tons of data doesn't automatically equal a utopia?
Exactly. Nexus, it argues that information itself has this inherent power, like it creates connections and shapes reality, and those connections, those realities that they don't have to be based on actual truth.
You've piqued my curiosity. Got an example.
Well, Harari uses a rather unexpected example, actually astrology.
Astrology.
Yeah. It might seem strange, but it really highlights his point. Even though scientifically, well, it's not exactly valid, right? Astrology thrives on creating these connections between people, you know, star signs, horoscopes, all that. It forms this network, a shared reality, even if the foundation is, well, a bit wobbly.
That's an interesting point. It's easy to kind of dismiss astrology as harmless fun, right? But when you think about it, it's this multi-billion-dollar industry. It has this very real impact on people's lives, on their decisions, even if the basis of it is, well, questionable. And in a world overflowing with information where like everyone and everything is vying for our attention, that's a crucial thing to remember.
It is, and it leads directly to Harari's next point, actually, the power of stories. He argues that stories were our first information technology. They were the key to large-scale human cooperation.
That rings true. Every culture has its myths, legends, these epic narratives that bond people together.
Precisely. Harari uses the Ramayana as a prime example. This ancient Indian epic, it's remained popular for like centuries. Think about this. Back in the 1980s, a TD adaptation drew in over 650 million viewers, made it the most watched show globally at that time. Then fast forward to 2020, during the pandemic, it was re-aired, and guess what? Topped the charts again.
It seems our love for a good story is like hardwired. But what does
Hmm.
this have to do with Nexus and information?
Well, Harari argues that stories, while powerful, they were just the beginning.
Hmm.
Along came documents, contracts, constitutions, even those credit tax forms, representing a whole new stage in this information game. They don't just represent reality; they actively shape it.
So it's like the difference between hearing a king's decree in a story versus like signing a contract that legally binds you to that king's laws.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That contract, it creates a new reality. You see a set of obligations, consequences that didn't exist before. This ability to shape our world, to create order. This is where Harari introduces the concept of the bureaucracy dilemma.
While bureaucracy might not sound like the most riveting topic, I think it's actually crucial to understanding Harari's argument about the control of information, right?
Absolutely. Harari argues that bureaucracy, with all its frustrations, it was essential for building and managing, larger, more complex information networks throughout history. Think of it as the scaffolding upon which large civilizations are built. But, and this is the dilemma, bureaucracy often prioritizes order over truth.
Okay, so that's the essential part. What about the dilemma?
The dilemma is that bureaucracy tends to simplify complex realities, often um, often forcing them into these neat little boxes, right? And this has real consequences for real people.
A personal example would really bring this home. Can you share one with us?
Harari uses a poignant example from his own family, actually. His grandfather, living in Romania, was stripped of his citizenship due to a bureaucratic quirk, a census law with these impossible hoops to jump through.
That example of your grandfather and the census law is wow, it's chilling because he didn't have the right paperwork. He was basically erased, even though he'd always lived there.
Exactly. And Harari connects this to a larger point. He argues that today's complex algorithms, the gatekeepers of information in the digital age, they could be making similar mistakes. They create these unforeseen consequences because their protocols are often too rigid, too inflexible to deal with the nuances of real life. They lack the human touch, so to speak.
It's both fascinating and a little unsettling how this all connects from ancient stories to modern algorithms.
And we're about to delve even deeper because the relationship between information and power, it becomes even more complex when we factor in technology. Harari, he introduces this idea of like, what he calls a silicon curtain.
Mhm.
And it's not like, a divide between nations like that old Iron Curtain, but one between us humans and these powerful, often, well, pretty inscrutable algorithms.
Okay, a silicon curtain separating us from the world of AI. That does sound a bit ominous. What do you mean by that?
Well, it is a bit ominous because we're talking about systems that unlike us humans, they can operate 24/7, constantly collecting and analyzing data. Harari, he draws this chilling comparison to totalitarian regimes, actually. He points out that even in a place like Ceausescu's Romania, where people lived with this constant fear of being watched by the Securitate, the secret police, there were still these moments of privacy, especially in one's own mind. Today, he argues that Securitate agent, well, it could be an algorithm, tirelessly monitoring not just our actions, but potentially even our thoughts and feelings as technology advances.
It's like those old sayings, the walls have ears or Big Brother is watching. But now the ears and eyes are digital, always on, and potentially everywhere. And it's not just like governments we're talking about here, right?
Precisely. Think about your own experiences with social media, right?
Hmm.
Those algorithms, they're watching what you click on, what you like, what holds your attention, constantly learning your preferences.
Hmm.
And then they then tailor your feed, maybe even shaping your behavior in ways that you aren't even aware of.
It is fascinating how these algorithms work, on a technical level. For example, like the advancements in machine learning and natural language processing, they've enabled them to understand and respond to our digital behavior in increasingly sophisticated ways.
You're right. The technology behind this is complex and it's evolving rapidly. And as those capabilities increase, so too does the potential for these systems to influence our choices, our beliefs, even our identities.
That's what worries me. Who hasn't felt that addictive pull of outrage,
Yeah.
the clickbait that makes us want to argue in the comments. Are we are we being played by these algorithms?
That's exactly what Harari is warning us
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
These systems, they can manipulate our emotions, our attention, and potentially even our beliefs with remarkable effectiveness.
So it's not just about the data itself, but who controls the algorithms, who sets their goals, and importantly, what are those goals, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And that leads us to a really critical question. Can democracy survive in a world where algorithms are dictating not just what we see, but what we believe and how we vote?
That is a big question, and one that feels incredibly urgent, honestly. How does Harai suggest we address this?
Well, Harari, he believes that understanding history is crucial here. He takes us on this tour of political systems throughout time, from the limited democracy of ancient Athens, which was constrained by the technology of its era, to the totalitarian ambitions of empires like the Qin in China and the Soviet Union. He highlights how each was ultimately limited by the ability to gather and process information.
So information control has always been this key factor in shaping societies and political systems. What makes this moment in history so different, so potentially threatening to democracy?
It's the sheer scale and speed of information flow today, coupled with the increasing autonomy of algorithms. That's what's new. In the past, it was about humans using tools. Now it's about humans potentially being eclipsed by those tools.
Okay, I'll be honest. I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed by by all of this, but I know you're not going to leave us with a sense of impending doom. What are some potential solutions? How do we prevent this silicon curtain from becoming an inescapable reality?
Harari emphasizes that individual actions are essential. He stresses the importance of critical thinking, being discerning consumers of information, questioning assumptions, and recognizing our own biases.
So we need a healthy dose of skepticism, especially when navigating the digital world. It does feel like a healthy dose of skepticism is, well, it's more important now than ever, honestly. But on a larger scale, can regulations help? I mean, can they rein in some of these potential dangers posed by AI?
Well, Harari argues that regulating AI, it requires a whole new way of thinking, you see. It's not enough to just treat, these tech companies like any other corporation. We have to acknowledge the fundamental power shift that's occurring and develop these safeguards, but ones that are specifically designed for the unique challenges that AI poses.
Can you give me some concrete examples of what those safeguards might might actually look like. I'm trying to picture how we practically address these issues.
One key aspect he highlights is algorithmic transparency.
Yeah.
We need to be able to understand how these systems make decisions, what data they use and how they reach their conclusions. It shouldn't be this black box.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like that old saying, trust but verify. But in this case, maybe it's more like verify than maybe cautiously trust.
I think that's a great way to put it, actually. And it's not about transparency just for the sake of it.
All right.
We need ways to audit these algorithms, to find and correct biases, and to hold the people, the organizations creating and using them, well, accountable.
So similar to how we have systems of checks and balances for other powerful institutions, we need ways to ensure that that power, even when it's wielded by an algorithm, isn't absolute or unchecked.
Precisely. Harari, he also argues for these robust protections for individual privacy in this age of AI. He proposes this interesting idea. He says that if democracies increase surveillance of their citizens, they need to simultaneously increase surveillance of governments and corporations as well. Transparency needs to go both ways, you see, to ensure that no single entity, it amasses too much power.
That's a really interesting perspective on balancing those power dynamics. It ensures that no one, whether it's the government or a corporation or even an algorithm, can operate with complete impunity.
And perhaps even more importantly, he cautions us about relying on algorithms to make decisions about really crucial aspects of our lives, things like justice, healthcare, and even warfare. He asks this chilling question: if algorithms can inherit the biases of the data they're trained on, could we inadvertently build a world that reflects not our highest ideals, but our deepest biases?
That is a sobering thought. It's like we're outsourcing some of our most important societal decisions to systems that might be replicating and even amplifying our own flaws.
And that's precisely why Harari stresses the importance of human oversight. We can't just blindly hand over control to these systems, no matter how efficient or objective they might seem. We have to keep asking those ethical questions, even when the answers are complex and uncomfortable.
So it's not just about understanding algorithms, but about understanding, well, ourselves, our values, our biases, and the kind of future we want to shape in a world that's increasingly intertwined with these non-human actors.
You've hit the nail on the head, and that brings us to Harari's final provocative thought, one that I think perfectly encapsulates the challenge before us. He posits that if we as a society can't even agree on basic definitions of things like truth, justice, or even the value of human life, how can we possibly expect to create algorithms that reflect these ideals? How do we build systems that are not just efficient but also ethical when those ethical questions remain, well, unresolved in our own human hearts?
That is a powerful place to leave our listeners, honestly, with a lot to contemplate. It's a stark reminder that the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create through our choices, the questions we ask, and the actions we take. And in a world increasingly shaped by information, by algorithms, by this interplay of humans and technology, well, that responsibility, it feels more crucial now than ever.
I agree. We must remember, as Harari urges us to do, to be active participants in shaping this future. We can't just be passive consumers of information in the age of the algorithm. We have to be critical thinkers, ethical innovators, and vigilant guardians of our shared human values. The future of humanity in this digital age, well, might very well depend on it.